Calling to order our July 26th meeting. In chambers with me, I have Managing Director Jerron Hollis, Assistant City Manager Greg Ferguson, Tom Conley, and Jessica Nguyen with Marketing Authority. Do we have any members who are joining us online or any other members of council? Okay. If not, second order of business, we have some minutes to approve from our February meeting. Are there any changes or updates to the meetings that need to be made prior to approval?
Motion to approve the minutes.
All right, there was a motion by Manager Ferguson. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second by Jessica Nguyen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Our next item up is a status update. Is that going to be by staff?
Yeah, this is Ryan Ferguson, Marketing Manager at the City of High Point. We're going to give a status update. We have invited Civic Brand to be on this call with us. We have our account manager, Connor, who is going to kind of help us give that status update. But from the city side, we're still pleased with all the word that's being spread around the community about taking that survey. We continue to encourage everybody to take that survey. We've got it out over our social media and our TV. It was at the State of the City. So we continue to pass out our cards here at City Hall and working with Visit High Point to get those in some of their travel bags to some of the sports teams and things that are coming this way, because we want to hear citizens as well as visitors and businesses around town. So we're continuing to do that. We're happy with Civic Brand. They've been great with communication so far. And they are planning a trip here at the end of next month. It's going to involve a lot of activities. But I will turn it over to Connor to kind of give an update of where they're at, where we're at on the survey, and kind of give us an itinerary, sort of an itinerary of their trip coming up, and then what needs they need from us to move forward. So Connor, go ahead.
For sure. Thank you, Ryan. As you said, I'm Connor Cox. I'm the Civic Brand. We are in the thick of our engagement process. So we are 3 focus groups in. So we've connected so far with High Point University students. We've connected with the Regional Economic Development Group. And then we have our third on Wednesday with the Business and Tourism focus group. And so we'll have 3 remaining with city department heads, art and design, and then we have one more equity organization. So we'll have a total of 6 of those, and then potentially more as we reevaluate near the end of engagement. We've wrapped up, I think, every one-on-one meeting with everyone in the committee and the city staff. And then, like I said, we're now kind of focusing on our second trip. So our first trip was learning, was really the big component of it. How do we embrace the community? How do we understand what's happening here? What's the projected future? Trip 2 is really going to focus on engagement. How do we meet the community where they are? And you know, a lot of firms may show up in town, plan a couple open houses, say, let's see who shows up. We kind of take a reverse approach and figure out what communities exist in High Point and how do we go to them and connect with them where they're most comfortable or where they already naturally gather. And so our second trip, like I said, we're going to focus on engagement, and we're really planning kind of engagement pop-ups. So we will travel in on August 31st, and we will remain in town through Saturday the 3rd. So the first couple of days, we're going to do local events. So we're going to pick a coffee shop and show up and buy people's coffee just to see if they can talk to us, tell us what they know about High Point, what they want to see in High Point. We picked 5 locations in town to do those kind of events. So we want to do something on Main Street or the Uptown area. We want to do something in the stadium area, potentially like a trivia night at Paddle South. We're looking at showing up outside of a Rockers game, and we're kind of coordinating all these logistics right now. So nothing's official, but and then we want to also pop up at a local business in North High Point. And then finally, that weekend is the Coltrane Festival, and so trying to collaborate with them, and how do we talk to visitors of High Point to understand what they're experiencing. How do we improve the visibility or their experience when they come into town? But we're really targeting these specific groups or specific parts of town to make sure that we're connecting. And then, sorry, the last one I missed was the Washington Street. We want to partner with a local business in that area to where we're connecting with those neighborhoods that are nearby. And so, like I said, we're right in the thick of how we engage the community, getting that feedback. The community survey that's been out for, I believe, just over a month or month and a half, has 496 respondents. So we're just now starting to dive into that data to see what demographic groups and what age groups have reached that survey, and to make sure we're kind of getting a fully representative results out of that. So in the next couple of weeks, probably following our second trip, we'll go back and start narrowing in on that data to make sure we're reaching all age groups and all demographics. So I think that's all I have. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Does anyone have any questions for Connor they would like to ask?
No, sir.
I got one, Mr. Chair. Jerron Hollis. Connor, I know that a part of the outreach process has been you reaching out to individual members of the community. I know early on, people would see your area code and think it was a spam call or something. We wanted to make sure, and I think we worked with you to kind of prep folks that they will be getting a call. So I think since we've done that, has that made it any easier, or are you having any challenges there with connecting with people?
Yeah, we've had really excellent feedback from the entire community. All of our focus groups are in the 15 to 20 people range, which is excellent. Like, that's really the sweet spot, and can be really challenging in other communities. So we've been really pleasantly surprised at how well we've been kind of taken in, and people are embracing this process. So we're pretty excited to be working there. But yes, everything's been good.
Thank you.
Great. Connor, this is Councilman Holmes. So on your upcoming trip, I know some of the parts of this meeting today was to kind of discuss how we can help better facilitate your trip. Are there any things, requirements that you would have from staff or the city or the task force that you could possibly employ us to do to help out with the process on your visit?
Yeah, I think, like I said, we're kind of planning all of the logistics of our visit right now to make sure these local businesses know and would like us to be there. We don't want to encroach on anybody's territory if they have other things, but so we're trying to lay those out. And then I think once we get there, we would probably lean back on staffing committee to encourage people to get out and meet us and talk to us about High Point. So, like I said, we're not just going to show up and expect people to talk to us. We're really trying to do something in each place that is meaningful or at least draws attention. So our hope right now is to kind of set up a temporary pop-up that would have just a few small tables and chairs, maybe some signage and maybe we're all wearing a bright colored shirt that says High Point or talk to me about High Point, or just something that catches people's eye that's a little unusual for that place. And so yeah, we'll be pushing the word out about that week, and our hope is that by the end of that weekend, people are like, man, I just see them everywhere. There are these people in these bright shirts, and they're just talking to people. So we really hope to make kind of a big impact that weekend, and we'll definitely have some opportunities for everyone to come engage us, and even just to promote where we are and when we'll be there.
Great. And I guess this question is for you guys as staff. In terms of, I guess, I know we've got a lot going on that particular weekend. Like, how are we hyping up the visit? Like, are we going to get in advance, prime the pump a little bit for these guys so that people know who they are a little bit more, or maybe a lot more visibility of Civic Brands when people see them? Because I know, if you approach somebody in a grocery store and it's like, hey, talk to me about High Point, unless, if we can kind of get some advance out there, is that something that you guys are planning to do, or what's the kind of the scheme we've got going?
Yeah, we're always ready to rock and roll and do any kind of marketing we can, if that's, putting a video out there saying, hey, if you see these guys, and just something that Connor said there, if they're gonna all wear bright yellow shirts that says, talk to me about it, we'll kind of give them an advance. Hey, if you see these guys around town, check them out, they're gonna come talk to you, and kind of prep the, hey, this is not a scam, they're not gonna ask you for any money or anything like that. But just kind of get that marketing out there. And I don't know, at some of these events, I don't know if we're looking to get masses at these events, thousands of people at each pop-up. I don't know what their sweet spot, and Connor can kind of give you that, of what they really feel would be a good group of people to get out there, but we can definitely give, it's not going to hurt to put that out there and say, hey, look, they're coming to town, and whether or not we're saying they're coming to town, here's going to be a specific information. We can always push them back to brandinghighpoint.com for that information to sign up. If they want to be part of that, they can kind of contact us there. Or if, Civic Brand says, hey, we really want the masses at each one of these, then we'll definitely rock it out. But, our standard, the social media, and we can certainly send out, press release that, hey, this is coming, just to kind of help get the word out overall about the project, let alone them kind of being here talking to everybody.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Connor.
Oh, I was just going to say, each one was kind of strategically selected and kind of targeted to a different audience. The Coltrane Fest and even the Rockers game both have probably a little bit of a visitors component that people may travel in from out of town to be there, but there's probably a mix of locals as well. Like the coffee pop-up, and then even the North High Point being at like Rickster Grill or somewhere like that. I think we're going to get kind of a community or local draw at those places that is pretty representative of the local population. And so we're trying to really touch different audiences and be strategic about each location that we show up. So, but certainly, anyone who wants to show up and anyone at any location, we would be happy and thrilled to talk to them. So.
Chairman, I would suggest Ziggy's also. The audience at the Coltrane, and I've been to it for every year, is a great audience, and mostly people from outside the community, and it tends to be older. At Ziggy's, and I talked to the guys that are running that, they only get 5% locals. So it's a situation where, I'm sorry, John. It's a situation where they tend to be younger, it's still a diverse audience, but if we can both do the younger, because that's a real target audience for the council, and not living in High Point, as well as the older folks for the Coltrane, I think you'll get some great responses, and they'll be very different.
Connor, were you able to get that? Did you get that, or?
Mostly, I think it was something along the lines of 5% of Coltrane Fest is local, so it's a pretty wide variety of visitors.
Yeah, there's also a club called Ziggy's, which is an outside club, and it draws a much younger audience, and it tends to be 5, 6.
What was that one called?
Ziggy's, Z-I-G-G-Y.
They visited Ziggy's. They've been there. That's part of Cohab, Connor. So that, I forget who was the concert that you guys went to that night. But yeah, so they've been in contact with Ziggy's. But that's definitely a great opportunity for them when it comes to the demographic. He was saying that Ziggy's was a younger demographic to most of their concerts, depending on who's playing that. Whereas the Jazz Festival does have an older demographic to it as well.
But to be able to see people from the outside covering a whole range from a demographic perspective, what a great opportunity it seems to me.
Yep. Thanks, sir.
Appreciate that. Yeah, and we tried to do a Ziggy's look, because last I checked, there wasn't a show that weekend we're in town, but.
This is Jessica Wynn. I also was wondering too if you guys had any other promotion, like, I was at community talks in Congdon Yards, and there was one person in particular who mentioned that they had no idea anything that was going on downtown, and they don't know anything that's going on with the stadium, etc. It was handled beautifully. They were taught how to learn, and I think that there's plenty of outlets to tell the community all the cool things that were going on, but you'll never be able to reach everybody, right? Sure. Just statistically, it's impossible. But, that person brought up things like, I know definitely you've done things with the High Point Enterprise, but they even brought up, mailers in the utility bill, and things like that. And so I do yeah, as a young professional in the city of High Point, I definitely, obviously agree that the younger demographic is somebody that we need to be listening to and kind of helping shape, have them at the table. But I do want to make sure that we're not missing that other demographic that maybe doesn't, pay attention online and things like that. I didn't know if you had any of that kind of stuff planned for this outreach.
We actually, this last month, we had, the mailer in there had Branding High Point, had the QR code, had the information where to go
Great.
to obtain that. I've done some, just like what you were talking about this morning, the chamber had last month was, I sat and talked to that audience over there at Cogden Yards. And we've done some other things like that to kind of get it out there but both through social media, through video, through in-person talking. We've tried to hit all of but like anything else, I don't know what's going on.
You can
know what
never
I mean?
reach everybody.
I mean, I
It's
can knock on your door and
impossible.
tell it to you, and then 5 minutes later, like, I never heard that before. That's something that we continue to battle and try and find new ways and technologies to kind of make sure that we hit everybody. Not everybody is, on Facebook. So how can we hit that when it comes to social media, whether it's through Nextdoor, Instagram, any kind of social media when it comes to someone might read the paper or see that insert and might not be on digital. So we want to make sure we hit all of our opportunities to hit those target markets and who it is. So, and that's one thing that we've kind of been following the lead with Civic Brand on that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then,
And even circling back at the end, that's kind of that final touches. Like right now, we're doing a blanket push. Like we want to engage anyone and everyone at High Point. But when we start circling back and route and tallying our data, looking at those demographic groups and age groups that have responded, if we're missing that 18 to 21, maybe we'll go do a high school or young professionals focus group, or just talk at those types of events that have those people there that we can engage with. Or even if it's the seniors, we'll go to a senior center and try to talk to people there. So we will circle back to make sure we get all of the voices to the table.
yeah, and, from that standpoint, going back to a demographic that I more actually identify with as young professionals, taking the market hat off and putting that hat on, I think a young professional focus group would be, I think, really valuable. The Chamber of Commerce, Lauren's not here to speak to it, but coordinates the High Point Young Professionals Group. And I think some kind of focus group will definitely, I think we would appreciate giving our input. And I think this is a great time to do it, to give kind of our view of what this could be. And,
Sure.
we all decide to work and play here, so we're very invested in the community and definitely want to give valuable input. But we'll definitely, depending on, I know you're working on the logistics, Connor, and we'll definitely stay tuned for that, but I think we can kind of blow this up for a young professional visit, even in August at some of these events that you're planning, so.
We'll definitely get both you and Lauren, obviously, she sits on this board, involved in that, so we can get, spread the word out through her channels to the young professional as well as the chamber, but make sure you guys are involved.
This is Councilman Holmes. So for both Connor and Ryan, I know that, when we began this, we wanted to capture voices that were traditionally not included. What channels are we doing to maximize the diversity of our reach? I know if we're talking about a young, diverse demographic, are we advertising on 102 Jams? Are we out there in the community on stations and things that young urban or young, African American or Latino or whatever demographic that we haven't traditionally hit, that they may see this or they may see the events that are happening in High Point? How are we diversifying our contact with communities that don't necessarily, always come to the baseball stadium or read the High Point Enterprise or even on Facebook? How are we doing that?
So I'll let
Go ahead, Ryan.
I'll let Connor go on that. As of right now, us as a department is kind of following their lead.
Okay.
Because this is kind of their wheelhouse, and that's why we have hired them to do that. So, but we have certainly provided all that information to different channels, to, any contacts, whether that's businesses, whether that's radio stations, media outlets, and shared all those. But I will certainly let Connor kind of take that one on.
For sure, and that's, we really rely heavily on that equity organizations focus group to tell us who are those hard to reach groups, who are those contacts that we just, there's the hard to reach groups, and then there's the very specific contacts, usually in communities, that know how to get to that group. And so we're hoping to connect with them, and we even have several one-on-ones from folks inside of those equity organizations as part of our process of who is it hardest to reach, and how do we use people that are connected to those communities to reach them. Because like I said, we can plan an open house and hope they show up, but it's more than likely that we won't connect with them in that place. And so really trying to find where those communities are and how do we get and find them in their natural place and connect with them there. So that will be a vital focus group that we really will have several follow-on conversations about outside of that group. Just, where are we missing people? How do we connect with these people? And then, like I said, when we circle back on our survey results, we'll also kind of see, are there any of these demographics that we're just not hitting? Because we do make sure that our survey is statistically relevant and representative of the High Point population. So does that make sense?
It does, and the reason I ask that is because, my daughter recently graduated high school, and we had her graduation party at the Catalyst Club here at the baseball stadium. And there were a lot of people who attended who had no idea that there was even a baseball stadium downtown. Mm-hmm. And, mostly African-American, very professionals, people who live and work right here in the city of High Point had no idea that there was this giant baseball stadium right in the middle of town. Loved it, thought it was beautiful. Now they're coming to games. But prior to them showing up at my daughter's graduation party, had no idea that we had a baseball stadium or a team or anything like that. And so when I showed them the food hall and I showed them all these things, they felt completely flabbergasted that they had never heard it. And I'm thinking, well, you guys don't pay attention to my Facebook post, that's hurtful. But to a larger extent, there are communities that are completely disconnected from the efforts that we've made in the city. And I think if we come away from this and we haven't made inroads to those communities, I don't know if we can call this necessarily successful.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And we traditionally rely on that local knowledge to reach those groups. We're the outsiders. We don't know who we connect with and normally wouldn't in High Point. So we're going to really rely on the committee and city staff to help us connect in those groups. But, I feel like historically speaking, our process is designed to reach those groups, and we don't move past engagement until we hit that group. And so, and that's just how we've always done it.
Mr. Chair, if I can pick on some of my neighbors as a fellow High Pointer, I bet none of those folks were in North High Point that you're talking about. One of the things that we established, I know in the one-on-ones, was that disconnect, and it's just happened geographically. I don't think anyone is deliberately saying they're not a part of High Point. It's just kind of where they find themselves. And I know there is a bit of a disconnect. We had talked about this before, Connor, with our North High Point, a lot of our residents there. For some of them, the entertainment options they don't have there right in their backyard. It's easy to get on Wendover and go into Greensboro. So that's a challenge that we've identified early on, and I know that some of the conversations and dialogue that we've had has focused on that group. So, Connor, I don't know from the North High Point standpoint, are there any challenges that you've had there that we can help undo a log jam, or how are you seeing that so far?
We haven't had any so far. I think, in the next few weeks, once we have that equity organizations and then also popping up in North High Point and having conversations inside that community, I think we'll have more of a kind of a rebound of where we're at in that community and making sure that we're making the right inroads in that part of town.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Greg Ferguson. I'm not sure if this has been discussed, and it may have already with some of the mailers, but we have a number of residents in High Point who have a post office address with another city on it, whether it's Jamestown or, I'm trying to think of the other one that's up north.
Yeah, we do have, I know my district, we have Greensboro and Jamestown in Ward 6. So that may be something that is an issue.
And then the other part is that we do have residents that live in other counties on the south side as well, and Forsyth on the west, so.
Davidson as well.
But I think that the problem is exacerbated up north.
It is.
Where, it may be over toward Jamestown.
You know, thinking about local businesses to do pop-ups in, I mean, I wrote down Washington area and local business. Becky and Mary's might be a great place to do a pop-up. I'm much more willing to talk about, take a survey if I'm also eating food. And speaking of that north end of High Point that doesn't necessarily get as much love, the Goofy Foot Tap Room is also a great place down there to do a pop-up too. I'm just like thinking of businesses now to do things, but.
No, and that's what we need. So, you know, especially in North High Point, between the two of you, I mean, Goofy Foot is a fantastic location. Is it, you know, depending on what time they're going to be there, if it's in the morning, Goofy Foot's not going to be open. And I think Connor had mentioned at some point it probably would be closer to earlier in the morning. So what's going to be good down there for that? So those are certainly things that we need to look at, that we can kind of go out and capture those people. Because just like you said, and like we said before, that, you know, some people, I've never heard of that. So, you know, we can target specific demographics, we can target specific locations. It's just depending on what we're targeting at that time. So right now, like I said, we're kind of following Civic Brand's lead, but we can certainly try and target any of those locations with the technology that we have to make sure that everyone's going to get that, or we can provide that out there. Whether or not they answer that call, I don't know. So.
And I don't know if you've talked to community development to talk about the Washington Street Neighborhood Association that they have, and like maybe to Jackie Davis about helping facilitate something in that area.
Yeah, so we've provided them with numerous businesses down there. They've already, you know, Patrick was on the second podcast that we've had, D-Up, you know, working with all those organizations down there to really put something together. Washington Street is one of their focus areas that they were talking about, or we've been talking about previously on some of these locations that we can hit. So hopefully if we get that, and we can get some of those younger generations that you know, may not know about that baseball stadium, but, you know, maybe their parents do, or maybe their parents didn't. So we can get that with a youth organization like D-Up, you know what I mean? Not only is going to get some opinions to some of those younger people, but also their parents and grandparents and things that bring that to that. So.
Well, Connor, thank you so much for your time. Does anyone have any further questions for Connor, or any additional comments that need to come before the task force today? Well, Connor, we appreciate it. We're excited about the visit, and we can't wait for you guys to get here. You know, I love the direction that we're going in, and I think, you know, for us as the task force, you know, being able to provide you guys with just some insight to, you know, that you guys can chew on to, as you continue to formulate this campaign for us. I think it helps us to feel connected to this, and so, you know, intermittently during this time we'll pull up and kind of get a status lay of the land. But you know, we know you guys. This is your stock in trade, and so we look forward to a great product coming forward. So if you have anything,
thank you.
If you have any questions of us or any needs of us, please feel free to reach out, Ryan, Jerron, or if you have our contact information directly to us, and we'll do what we can to get you what you need.
Yeah, thank you so much. Ryan and John's team have done a great job and really connected us everywhere we've needed to be. So they've made our lives much easier, and we're excited to get back out and be on the lookout for some materials that come out of where we're going to be and when we'll be there. And we hope to see you all there at least one of the pop-ups. So
Great. All right.
if you need anything in the near or in the meantime, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're always happy to do updates like this for anyone.
Certainly. All right.
Awesome.
Well, if there's no other comments or nothing else to come before the task force, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second, Jerron Hollis.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We are adjourned.